My dad had this concept of developing a rough terrain forklift and starting his own business. And I was in my final year at St. Clair College. He said, "What are you going to do when you graduate?" I said, "Probably go work for some company." And he said, "Well, I have this idea of starting a company." I said, "Well, I have 3 years business administration. That should be a foundation to start it." And so November 1968, we incorporated Sellick Equipment and started it in January 1st, 1969. And in May, when I graduated, I started full-time and have been here ever since. We basically took a Ford tractor and turned it around into a forklift. It's a rough terrain, so it's not used primarily in factories where you see the small jitneys, they call them. These are used outdoors, mud and snow, and primarily like building supply yards, construction sites, oil fields, poultry farms, any place where you need traction and high ground clearance. Most of the competition was manufactured in the United States, and my dad was with a Ford tractor dealership and was importing the forklifts into Canada at a 15% duty. Also, having his mechanical background, he knew what the flaws were in the competitive products. We're the only Canadian manufacturer at that time, and we remain the largest Canadian manufacturer. The new plant sitting on 13 acres will be approximately 120,000 square feet, compared to 70,000 square feet here in 8 acres. The current facility was built in 1910 and 1935, as low ceiling capacities, and so with this new wide span, wide open plant, we can design and manufacture larger forklifts. My dad grew up on a farm around tractors. He's mechanically minded. During the war, he studied diesel engineering. After the war, he worked in the farm tractor dealerships, worked his way up into sales, and then up into general management. From that, my brother and I were able to learn, growing up with him, the management background, also the mechanical background, understand the components that we're working with. He was very active. He was on school board, he was on the fire department, the Rotary Club. He was also Mayor Harrell for a term. My mother come from a Scottish background, was taught to be very frugal, take care of things, keep things neat. My dad, mechanically minded. He taught us how to fix things, how to be fair to people, and a strong work ethic. Another mentor that come along was a close friend of my dad's. He was head of Ford France at one time. When he retired, he wanted something to do. He came to Harrell for a 3-month consulting agreement and stayed here for 10 years. His name was Ray Rowe, and he taught my brother and I to always be a student of the business. You're always going back to school. You're always reading trade journals. You're always going to trade association meetings, talking to competition. You must continue to be a student. And finally, Mr. Bourne, who's chairman of Avis Industrial, he has taught us strong financial controls, and also that the status quo is not good enough. You always have to be reaching beyond. And so he's constantly pushing my brother and I to grow this company. I started at White. It was on Erie Street, and we had to wear jacket and tie every day. We got used to it. It was just what you had to do. From Erie Street, the South Windsor campus of St. Clair, the big building wasn't put up yet, so they had these little porta buildings. We called them the armpits, and they were hot and crowded, and we couldn't wait for the new building to be completed. Early days were great. We had a lot of fun. We had the team I was with were all achievers. The president of the Student Administrative Council was from my class, president of the Athletic Council was from my class, and the editor of the newspapers from my class. So we pretty well controlled the college. Bob Holmes, marketing, Dewey Grant, accounting, Parmer Varma, economics, Tom McCarthy, Dr. Q and his jelly beans. Yeah, he was very interesting. He was very dynamic, and I think he meant a lot to the college. He grew it. I always recommend St. Clair College, and I ask what their area of interest is. I'll tell them, I said, well, the areas of biggest demand is in business is accounting. There's a good demand for accounting, or technology. You're guaranteed to get a job. So that's what I recommend to the students.